Et maman, can we get le news?
No, Chantal, we have news at home.
News at home.
Oh no!
Is that Mario?
That's perfect.
Is that Italian?
I don't know
That was perfect.
why I'm always just, whenever I try an accent, it always gets Italian in a way, right? Like Singaporean becomes Singaporean Italian. French becomes French Italian. Can never win. I'm Wilson Lai.
I'm Benjamin Yap.
I'm Eli Sands.
You're listening to Deep Cut.
On Deep Cut, we compare a director's most popular film with a personal favorite chosen by one of us.
We also discuss the director's life in Korea to bring context that helps us view their movies as they may want us to.
If you're enjoying the show, please rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. Better still, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or comment on episodes directly on Spotify. You can also find us at deepcutpod.com to find links to our socials, Discord, and Patreon.
Cool. We are continuing our Chantal Akerman series with a double bill, the parrot films of News from Home from 1976 and No Home Movie from, I gotta do the counting here. How many years after that is that? 15,
2015
40 years
minus-
after, 2015.
Yeah.
39.
39.
Mhm.
39 years after Chantal Akerman's last movie, 2015's No Home Movie. No spoiler warning for these films because there's really nothing to spoil.
No.
And I
True.
guess we should just get into it with, I don't know, like a general reaction to the films. Like, how do people feel
Yeah.
after watching both of these films? Because this is my first time watching it, and I was just like,
I mean, it's been a while since we've done a 2-movie episode, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Throwback.
feeling like uneasy about how to talk about this. But I guess for general reactions, I guess I could talk about both films or the experience of me watching both films. The only film that I had seen before this of the two was News from Home, and I was lucky enough to catch that on the big screen for the first time, like maybe 2 years ago, I think, and it played here in Hong Kong, and I found it to be incredibly moving. I think it was the first Akerman that I was like, wow, this is really something else. I like don't know what exactly about it that makes me feel some type of way, but it just is really effective in getting me into an emotion. And I think revisiting it, it sort of cleared my head and made me realize like how singular and how incredible this film is. I'm talking about specifically about News from Home, which shows basically Akerman shoots New York City as she is studying there to be a filmmaker, and you have these visuals of New York, and over the visuals, or sort of in sync with the visuals, we have Akerman reading letters that her mom is sending her during this period of time. And I think this simplicity of News from Home allows for you to place yourself in it so easily. Like, I think it's just, she's not dictating how you should be feeling watching this. It is very much like, I'm presenting this, and like your version of experiencing this and melding that with your own experiences and memories and feelings will sort of allow you to come out of this like a changed person. And it's just really like a magic trick of a movie. I was thinking a lot about my own time in the US studying film and being away from my own mother, who was here in Hong Kong, like alone. And the guilt that I felt being away from home, but also the need that I felt to leave home and be away from home. And I'm sure that Akerman is thinking about that too when making this. It's just really powerful stuff. And then I caught No Home Movie, and that just absolutely decimated me.
Sorry, I forgot to do a plot summary. So just describe No Home Movie. You did a great one for Letters from Home, so just describe No Home Movie.
Thank you. So No Home Movie, well, they're sort of like basically bookends to explaining this relationship that Chantal Akerman has with her mother through documentary. And No Home Movie sort of chronicles the last few months in Chantal Akerman's mom's life, and Akerman herself is leading this nomadic lifestyle, moving between different places in the world, and occasionally visiting her mother, who, through these some conversations, recounts her past, specifically during the Holocaust, and being someone who was persecuted. And then as you go on, I think the last 30 minutes of No Home Movie, Akerman's mother's health takes a really sharp turn for the worse, and it's kind of excruciating to watch. And I think just with the combined knowledge of News from Home and the thing that you said the previous episode, Ben, about how all the films in Akerman's filmography are about her mother. Like, it is a love that she has for her mother, but it's also just a very complicated relationship that she has with her mother. It's very clear to us that she's just she's using filmmaking and the process of like making these pieces of cinema in order to sort of explain to herself or come to terms with or just sort of work out how she feels about her mother. And it just was, it was honestly, at points, it was just way too much for me. Like, I just was not able to like emotionally cope or deal with what I was seeing or what I was experiencing. Like, even though everything that we have been, like, we're going to be talking about today is just pieces of really slow cinema. Like, you have extended takes of like her going through like deserts, like shooting like windy trees, like shooting her mother just like sitting there. Like, there's just so much of nothing happening, but within that nothingness, within that boredom, comes like floods of emotion. Sorry, I'm just like speaking so much, but I feel so much about this movie and Akerman as a filmmaker, Akerman as a person, her mother. Like, there's just, I am so in awe of these two movies and how they make me feel and just their place in cinema. I was thinking back on the previous recording, and I feel like just we've discounted her. We discounted her a lot. Like, I just don't think that there's really anything like her. And I think we were like, oh, she's like a woman. Like, we were like we were just sort of thinking about why she's at the top of the list for Jeanne Dielman. But I just don't think that anyone really comes close. I don't think even Varda like touches the way that she touches.
I think there's a singularity to Akerman's vision.
Yes.
I was watching this, and I'll bring it up again, this conversation with Celine Sciamma, where she talks about Akerman and her veneration of Akerman. Great.
It's incredible.
I guess interview or moderated discussion. Great. I love Sciamma's thoughts on it. And she talks about how Akerman is in love with the language of cinema, but she's not necessarily a cinephile. Which means that her approach to cinema is pure. She's not trying to be like anybody else. She's trying to use the language of cinema to tell you her perspective and her story. And in these two movies, that story is her mother. And maybe to go after Wilson, to have just a completely different, maybe, response to the film. Because I'm not a person that generally enjoys slow cinema. Even with Jeanne Dielman, like, I can be in admiration and in awe of the craft of it. And I can tell you, and I do tell you, that it is not a particularly enjoyable watch. And it's not supposed to be an enjoyable watch.
Right.
It is meant to be slow. It is meant to be boring. That is the point. And I did find watching these two movies to be difficult in terms of just like having the attention to pay attention to them. And necessarily, these are films that want you to slow down and to observe things. And I've been really thinking about how I, and I guess maybe the larger population, approaches cinema and how we approach thinking about the value of cinema. And I think that's why it's so easy to discount Akerman, because she doesn't do always entertainment. Her cinema is not entertainment. And I wouldn't even say it's cinema for necessarily an emotional experience. It is like cinema as experiments, like cinema as playing with the form. Even so, it is playing with the language of cinema, but it happens to be that this clay is subject material that's her mother, but she's trying to figure out what she can do with the form. I don't know. I really struggle with thinking about how to approach them. Like, I can very, maybe from a cold, detached perspective, talk about them in terms of format. I can tell you what she's doing, and I can understand what she's doing, and I can see what she's doing. And I think a lot of times I personally talk about cinema in terms of effectiveness of the use of form, whether that's narrative or cinematic craft. But here, what is the effect that she wants to do, and how do you assess whether it's effective? Because we do not necessarily know what effect she necessarily wants. Yeah, so I think that makes it difficult from the way that maybe I, and I guess we have been educated about cinema, to approach this in the way that we've always approached films. And not to say that we've always been right about the way we approach films, but I find that to be kind of fascinating. And that's why she stands so outside the normal zone of filmmaking, which is also why Jeanne Dielman being at the number one spot of that list is pretty incredible, because it seems like a lot of people put it up there because they wanted to vote for something outside the common circle.
I think that question about effect is pretty key, Ben. And it makes me think of something Wilson said a moment ago about how these movies are very clearly Akerman working through her relationship with her mother for her own sake. Almost as a private art-making form that became public. Movies are so commonly thought of as being designed for an audience, and any formal choice is to communicate something to the audience. But what if those formal choices are there to communicate something to the filmmaker, and the audience is somewhat incidental? I think that's the case here. And for me, that actually makes it perhaps less directly emotional an experience, but the omission and ambiguity and prioritization of the filmmaker, which I think is what is so singular about Akerman, invited me to fill in some of the blanks with my own experiences, including my relationship to my mom, to my late grandmother, to New York City as a place, to the act of filmmaking, to Jewishness. There's a lot there in these two movies that kind of got me filling in the blanks where I didn't necessarily get emotionally activated by the movie itself. And I think that's part of the magic trick, is that both of these movies for me became more because of the ways that they invited me in to fill in the blanks, which I think is a result of Akerman making these movies primarily for herself, or not for herself, but designed through her own language of cinema to work through something for her own sake, I think, if this is making sense.
No, it makes total sense. I was watching, and I'll link this interview with Akerman, and next to her was the editor of No Home Movie, and they were editing the film. So this is late in Akerman's own life, because tragically she takes her own life maybe 8 or 10 months after the premiere of No Home Movie. And she talks about how with documentary, yes, there's like a need to like capture reality, but the act of capturing anything changes what you capture.
Right.
So there's this feeling in documentary that we're trying to show things as it is. And of course, we know about the manipulation of documentary, that edit and what you show, what you don't show, that affects what is real in documentary. But we also tend to discount how the act of filmmaking, the act of capturing, also changes what's in front of the camera. It necessarily changes what can even be captured. Right? You can never capture something that is not being captured. And so you will never get that experience. And it is so interesting what you say, Eli, which is that maybe by introducing the act of filmmaking into her relationship with her mother. She's trying to maybe not capture it, but actually change it or to trigger something in it.
I think that's it.
And that means that the point of the movie isn't the movie. The point of the movie is the act of making the movie, which is completely different from how we think about films, because films are outcome oriented, generally speaking.
Right.
We talk about the last thing, which is the film, but then we don't talk about everything else. Like, think about all the footage for No Home Movie that's on the cutting room floor right now.
Yeah.
That is not the movie.
Correct. And that is absolutely something that wrinkles my brain, because the movie is also about what it's not inside it, what she chooses to omit. And her choice of omission, something we will never see, as far as I can tell. We don't know if she deletes them. We don't know if she kept them. We don't know if somebody's going to archive them. We don't know if it's ethical to even show that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But that stuff is the movie, but it isn't in the movie. and that really boggles my mind. It's not emotional. It's just like a wrinkle in time kind of situation here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very heady exercise, but I think it boils down to that her filmmaking, and these movies in particular, are part of her relationship with her mother, not depictions of her relationship with her mother. Or they are depictions and they're also part of that relationship. You know, we mentioned No Home Movie being Akerman's final film. Weirdly, it's the first one of hers that I saw, and the only one that I'd seen up until watching Jeanne Dielman and News from Home. I learned about it through our mutual friend, Sophie Somaroff, who at the time was writing an essay about Akerman and Jeanne Dielman in particular, and holding it up against No Home Movie. So I had watched No Home Movie then, and it seems funny and roundabout to approach her work from that final movie first. Because there are parallels between No Home Movie and News from Home, such as in both, Natalia Akerman, Chantal's mother, bemoans the fact that Chantal doesn't share deep information with her. And I can't imagine losing your mother and then making No Home Movie. And then what I understand anecdotally of the premiere of No Home Movie at Locarno in, I guess it would have been 2015, Ziet Anger, I believe, was there and used to have online an essay that was findable, and now we're having trouble finding it, that describes being at the premiere and how Anger witnessed Akerman's disappointment at how it was received, that there were walkouts, that it got tepid applause, because it is, to your point, Ben, not an entertaining movie, and very distinctly and purposefully not an entertaining movie. But I can't imagine losing your mother, still working on a film about her, and then having that kind of premiere to the movie. That sounds insurmountable as a wound.
You could even, you can do this right now, because Letterboxd was a thing when No Home Movie premiered. You can go into No Home Movie and you can sort by earliest first. And the first few reviews, and the two people that I follow that saw this at the first screening, David Ehrlich and Mike D'Angelo, really ripped into this movie.
Oh, man.
It's kind of wild. Well, Mike D'Angelo is really harsh on a lot of films, but I would put Ehrlich as someone who I guess overrates rather than underrates, but he really in his review ripped into the No Home Movie, and that for the maybe she probably read these reviews, Akerman, and probably the feelings that
hopefully not
were, well, hopefully not, but she might have. But to have something so intimate for you, just you're sharing a secret of yourself with a large theater audience, and them sort of take it that way, must have been a massive blow. Yeah, also just coupled with the fact that she had recently lost her mother in the process of completing and editing this film, must have been so rough. Oh my, yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing about ranking and reviews and criticism, and IndieWire and Mike D'Angelo, they have scores. I score movies, and of course, these are not really useful metrics. Average rating, which I use all the time, is actually not a useful metric because there's just not enough time to read through all the reviews to decide whether something is good or not. But also, whether that question even is important is like a whole other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I come back to something that Siama says in that video. She shows a clip from Akerman's 2000 film, The Captive, which I haven't seen. And after showing a clip where it's a bunch of people singing, there's no dialogue, and just cuts between a bunch of people singing and a person observing them. And she's like, just shrugs, and it's just like, And she basically says, there's nothing to say. It is pure cinema. There is no words to describe what Akerman is doing because there is no necessity for words because Akerman's trying to give you a filmic experience that can only be experienced and not discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Which may be like close credits on this episode, but and I think that is the case for these films. Like we've been talking a lot about No Home Movie. I think about News from Home as a very interesting formal exercise.
Yeah.
During our discussion of Jeanne Dielman, I talked about her influence from structural filmmaking. News from Home is a structural film. It is absolutely a structural film.
100%.
What is the film? Scenes of New York, overlaid with letters from my mother. That's the film. That's the entire film. But what is the value of the film is noticing what is omitted, Akerman's own voice, and yet you hear her voice saying her mother's lines, but never what her response is.
And the time between the letters that are read, both in terms of actual time of the letter and the time, like screen time between which they're read.
The disassociation between, or the dissonance between what you see and what you hear. And also sometimes the lack of substance from her mother. Like it's just news. It's not letters from home. It's news from home. It's just these two people getting married. These people don't like each other anymore. They're updates. They're like tweets. They're short.
Yeah.
You know?
Tweets from home.
And I can say all these things, right? Like these are just descriptions of what the film is. These are just the materials of the film. But the emotional experience of it is completely up to you. Like Wilson has a huge emotional response to this because of Wilson's own personal feelings and his own personal experiences. I have a very different experience because I think about things differently. I have a different personal experience. Maybe it doesn't connect with me that way. So be it. But it's actually not about the film at all. Like it's never been about the film, right? We know what she's doing. We know the effect. We don't even know the effect. We know what she's doing with the form. We know what she's doing. But actually, in a way, Akerman doesn't know what the effect necessarily is sometimes. She just does it.
Which is incredibly brave and beautiful to make art that is going to have such a multiplicity of reactions to it that you can't account for.
Yeah.
Which is all art anyway.
Which means she's more in love with the process than she is with the outcome. She doesn't know how you're going to take it. You're going to take it however you take it. She just knows I have this idea for this structural film, this form idea. I'm going to put it together and then let's find out what it looks like at the end. I mean, for me personally, like when I think about News from Home, I don't have much to say about it. Like the film is just what the film is.
I have more to say about
Go
it.
ahead.
I have more to say about what my associations with it are than with the movie itself. Because assuming Akerman is making this in the range of 1974 to 1975, maybe a little bit 1976, because it comes out in 76. This is a couple years before my mom is going to NYU.
No way.
As a student.
She in it? You should check. Mother, look at this. Are you in it?
Look at every frame. But to think about her being in those places, even younger than me, and this is roughly what she would have been seeing. And that's what, you know, this subway station that I go through once a week now looked like back then. It just sort of constructed so many little thread connections that just kind of got me thinking and seeing it through a totally different way than either of you watched it or anyone else watches it.
Yeah, we're all bringing our own baggage to this film. And like, I think that's the beauty of structural films. Or like, I think it's not just structural films. I think it's films that are like slow cinema films.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've really touched upon, like in the history of this podcast, we've never really like touched on slow cinema. Like we've touched on long cinema, we've touched on like Yang, we've touched on Wiseman, but we have not really touched Bellatar. We have not talked about Psy. Like these,
We're ethical.
yeah, these filmmakers that refuse to cut and hold you past your point of comfort in order to get you to start thinking further than what the movie is offering you. Like there comes this really like special moment when things start running past your comfort level of like just seeing something occur on screen. You could even connect this to Jeanne Dielman. Like,
Of course.
when the fuck will she stop cutting those potatoes? Who knows? But it is past the point that is comfortable for me to watch you cut potatoes. So I'm not having a regular reaction to you cutting potatoes. I am having like this really uncomfortableness, like watching you, and my mind starts thinking about, okay, like when have I thought cut potatoes? Oh, my mom cooks. Like, is this what she feels? Like, this is, I think the possibilities are endless when you think about that. Like some filmmakers have really direct like reasoning of like, I'm gonna show this for this many seconds and you're gonna feel this way, and then I'm gonna cut, and then the next shot will make you feel this way about this character. But it's just in that murky time and space in there where you're really like, I don't know, you're reaching levels that are indescribable, that are really personal to you as a viewer. Yeah, it's just magical. And that's why it's like, I think it's so hard to approach because you can't explain it to people. You don't really, because everyone takes it in an individual way. And like, if people back away from watching things that make them unsure or uncomfortable how to feel about it.
Yep, they sure do.
I think it comes back to this idea of like, what do you think this term pure cinema means? Like the possibility of cinema, and what is the most important thing about cinema compared to its related art forms? It's time and the cut. And to add some nuance to what you were saying, Wilson, I haven't seen that any Bellatar. I've not seen that much Bichapa or Sataku, but I think something that I think about for Akerman is that yes, she does hold on to shots for longer than you expect, for longer than you think, and she talks about her own sense of time. But I think what's critical for me for Akerman is not only that the shots are long, but also that the most important thing is when does she cut and when she introduces a change. Because you can hold on for something for forever, but for her it's like, I'm going to hold on to it for, say, 2 minutes, or maybe 2 minutes and like 4 seconds, because that just feels slightly off. But then she has to introduce a change. In that same video where she is with her editor for No Home Movie, she talks about that very first cut in No Home Movie. And she loves it. She's so excited about it. And just to describe it, it is that shot of a tree in a desert. I guess it must have been in Oklahoma where she was talking about. Maybe, I don't know.
It doesn't look. There aren't palm trees in Oklahoma.
Okay, what desert is this? I have no idea. Where is she?
No clue.
Something that we do return to multiple times in the film as well. And then it's a tree, and then there's just wind going through it, and it goes from like kind of quiet to really loud. And then she loves how the cut goes from this like sudden gust of wind noise to this random topless man sitting in the backyard that she lives at. And she's like, oh, there's this change between the violence of the nature and the, I don't know what that man represents, but that stillness, right? And I'm gonna tell you, this was before I watched the movie, and I was just like, what is this girl talking about?
What's my watch it and you get it.
My immediate reaction,
Feel it.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't get it.
Oh.
I don't get it. I don't get it, but I respect that there's something there. I still don't get it. Because I feel the juxtaposition, yeah.
That also goes back to the idea that she's making a formal choice that makes sense to her first, personally. That won't necessarily translate to the audience.
Yeah.
Right.
Something that makes her feel something.
Yeah.
You know, and I think she's kind of a funny filmmaker. She does things that she finds funny, or like odd juxtapositions, or like, what if I do this right now? Or what if I vary this in a certain way? I think for News from Home, the big thing about the time is that you don't know when this voice is coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be 5 seconds, it might be 2 minutes.
You could go minutes
5
without
minutes.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like short, and sometimes I'm like, oh, is that the last letter? And I'm like, just speed through the movie now. And then it's like, oh wait, no, there's more. You know what I mean? And I think it's part of trying to keep you on your toes.
I love that the process of her editing in the letters from her mother is in itself her replying to her mother. It is how long she takes between it, how much of New York seeps into the voiceover, how much the voiceover gets drowned out by the sounds of New York City. Like, there are points where she's reading these letters that the subtitles don't even pick up on what is being said in these letters. That's how, like, the relationship between the diegetic, the sound that's happening that you can see, and the non-diegetic, which is the sound from her reciting her mother's letters, this clashing of these two different elements. Very simple. Two elements that were at play right now, but it is a conversation that is happening between the news from home and where she is at right now. Or not right now, but at that time.
You know, the other like non-diegetic touch that I was thinking about in watching News from Home is that for non-French speakers, this movie has subtitles as part of the imagery. And I've never thought about subtitles as a formal... I mean, it's not necessarily a formal choice, but imagine how different this movie is just hearing the voiceover instead of reading it also.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, like, to just have the not at all visually represented acousmatic disembodied voice speaking to you at points when you can't anticipate it.
Yeah. It's a funny movie in that respect. Because I think a lot about how most of the content of the letters is, why are you not writing back to me?
Yeah.
Did you get my $20?
Like maybe 50% of the content is, write me back. And I don't really think that's a big exaggeration. That like really, every letter starts with, when are you going to write back to me? It has been 3 weeks since your last letter, etc., etc., etc. I'm sad when you don't write back to me. 50% of the movie is that. And it's almost like maybe Akerman feeling guilt for not responding on time. And she's showing you how maybe her mother judges her, and I guess that's how she judges herself, because these are the materials that she decided to put back into the film. She decided to display her own deficiencies, maybe. I don't know whether that's one way of looking at it, but yeah.
Or that this movie is the response letter. Like, you are a part of my experience here, and here's what I'm experiencing here, and you're a part of that. If News from Home is the simultaneous guilt and love and connection to home, or that you need to step away from home in order to have a connection to it and understand what that connection is, then No Home Movie is like the flip of that. It's Akerman, I think, working to convince herself that there is no distance in the world, that she can be close to her mother. And then that question of like, did she take too long to reply, does feel like it points to No Home Movie in a sad way.
She does talk about how she never heard her mother talk about her time in the camps.
Yeah.
And her mother does allude to her time in the camps.
Very briefly.
Or at least in the lead up towards the camps, but she never talks about the camps directly. And I don't know whether the making of the movie was a way to try and bridge that and to try and learn more about her mother, because there is this thing from her mother's life, her mother that she's so close to, but there's a gigantic black hole of information she knows nothing about, and that I'm sure she's so curious about.
And by the same token, Natalia Akerman says to Sylviane, Akerman's sister, that Chantal never tells me important things or doesn't tell me what's really going on at like Berlin and New York.
Yeah.
That's such a crazy moment in that movie where they have that aside, and like Chantal's just like she's filming that, like she's capturing that like little side conversation that Sylviane and Natalia have about her. And I'm like, I swear, like if she wasn't there in that moment in that room, like like just the feelings that she had probably revisiting that footage in the editing room must have been
That's what I was thinking about
insane.
too.
Yeah.
A couple of years before my grandma passed away, my mom's mom, I sat down with her and asked if I could make a recording of just asking questions about her childhood. And I have about 30 to 45 minutes of recording sitting on my computer, and I can't bring myself to open it up. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that audio. It's just there. And the thought of revisiting that footage for Akerman and seeing a conversation about her that she didn't necessarily witness in the moment, and having that extension of a kind of interaction with her mother after her mother's death is like, I can't wrap my head around that.
There's this quote, if you go to Wikipedia, that like is from New York Times about the movie, where I guess the person writing the piece had a phone interview with her. And she says this. She says, I think if I knew I was going to do this, I wouldn't have dared to do it.
Whoa.
About the making of the movie.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
It's almost kind of a crazy thing to put yourself through, right? Like, let me make a piece of art about the actual death of my mother before it happens. That is an insane thing to put yourself to do in the future after the grief you know is coming.
Yeah. No matter how long you wait, that's just reopening.
All right.
I don't know.
And there's always the question of like typically with people with, say, just decent relationships with their parents, at the very least, the feeling like you do enough for your parents or you share enough with your parents. And it's the kind of thing that, like, I guess puts that into relief of like what enough looks like for your relationship with your parents.
Yeah, well.
And I guess having concrete evidence.
I mean, it's enough for you, but is it enough for your parents as well?
I mean, there's that too, right?
Right, and how can you possibly know?
Exactly.
If it is?
There's all this concrete evidence that like allows you to almost quantify it, but you still never know that other part that you're saying, Wilson. So you can't even size it up. It's a stupid question. Don't ask yourself that kind of questions.
But the process of me watching this movie, like, had me asking myself these questions. That's why I was like feeling so like emotional about it. I mean, like, just to get briefly really personal, but hopefully not too emotional, I have lost a parent, and like I think there just comes a lot of weight that just comes with that, especially like at a young age, of like the what ifs or like the conversations that could have happened, or like I don't know, you could just really spiral into like weeks of just thinking about that. And like I don't know, I just feel so like this kind of kinship with Akerman making this, and I think that's also why it's just blah 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 sorry, no more words, just blahs.
No sorries.
I'm finding that too, Wilson, that any path I try to go down in talking about this movie, it kind of ends in I don't know, like I don't know what to say or how to articulate what it brings up. It's just and it is what you bring to it again.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a weird conclusion I'm taking from it, which is filmmaking is not an effective tool.
that kind of,
for figuring this shit out. And I'm not even going to say there is a tool to figure that shit out. It's like one of the fundamental things that you are just going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
The unknowability of other people, whether it's your parents or your lover or your friend or whatever the hell it is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The film is 2D images, sometimes 3D, but usually not. And it can't see past the frame. Like, it's just like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost, it feels like she's trying to dig a hole with a spoon. And I'm watching her do it over a 39-year span.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it feels like a fool's errand. But in a way, the respect is in trying, even though it is ultimately futile.
100%.
Yeah.
And the love is in the trying, too.
Yeah. It's kind of wild.
It's comforting to know that only people, perhaps, you can know perfectly are your podcasting co-hosts.
You knew some bullshit was coming. There isn't even video here. What are you talking about? We edit everything heavily. Eli's actually not real. He's AI.
I'm a figment of your imagination.
This whole time, Eli's voice hasn't been real. We're finally telling all after 100 episodes.
110 episodes. We're there.
Man, you've got me doubting it now.
Well, imagine if that was real.
It is not. Eli is a real person.
Thank you.
Yes.
Eli AI? Eli?
Eli. Eli AI.
Yeah. I kind of want to talk a little bit about Varda because you dropped it just now, Wilson, and maybe because you read it in my notes.
Yes, I did.
Because I was thinking a lot about how they kind of compare in their documentary work. I mean, I think of Varda as a very joyous person and Akerman as not.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is that Varda is really interested in the subjects and the power that film allows her to capture subjects.
Mm-hmm.
But it does feel like Akerman is more interested in the power of the form itself on its own accord, on its own value of the form, just the language of cinema. Maybe less so the subject, right? It's almost kind of a given that the subject is her mother, but she's trying to figure out what can I do using the film to understand my mother. Less so that my mother is such an interesting person. And she never tries to be like, oh, my mother is a very interesting, singular person. Whereas Varda does have these subjects, which is like, oh, look at this cool thing they're doing, or something interesting, right? If anything, she tries to show her mother as somebody pretty typical, who is like most other people, right? There isn't a venerating sense to her filmmaking.
Right.
Which carries through her films, which is that she's trying to so-called capture life as it is, whether fictional in Jeanne Dielman or through documentary, and maybe not trying to apply some sort of necessary or heavy commentary on what she's showing you, maybe. I say that with a lot of question marks because I don't know whether that's really true, because of course editing is, like with Wiseman, editing is also a sort of commentary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think what we're seeing here with Varda and with Akerman is that filmmaking can exist in this, like, even wider spectrum than what we ourselves are even like normalized to thinking about. Like, I feel like the spectrum that we are normalized to thinking about is like, oh, this is like, it's either commercial films or like art house films. Like, that's, I don't know. Yeah. But I think these two titans of cinema, Agnes Varda and Chantal Akerman, exist on opposite ends of another filmmaking spectrum, or their relationship to filmmaking can't be more different. I think Varda inherently seeks out the joy of cinema, and in its playfulness and in its way of tricking the audience, or like making a movie as an in-joke with an audience. Like, there's just, like, I feel that so much from Varda, and I think it's a reflection of her own personality, as you said, Ben. But I think Akerman in interviews is also very animated and like quite like excitable of a person. But I think the way that, like how you specifically said, the relationship that she has with time and her subjects and cinema itself is so absolutely different from Varda herself, and they are both making movies in this art house like experimental lane, but they couldn't be like further apart in the world of filmmaking. Yeah, it's just sort of like thinking about like, oh, filmmaking is a 2D plane, but actually, boom, like it's so many more dimensions. Like your mind is like, my mind right now is getting like blown to pieces.
And that question of who the movie is for adds a whole other plane or dimension to this scale as well. Akerman's throwing out of the rule book and formal experimentation, especially No Home Movie, where compositions are whatever the camera is looking at. They're specifically not organized by whatever the rule of thirds, for example. It got me reevaluating like the little videos I would make when I was an early teen of my family. Like, how different are those? And does it matter? It doesn't.
In a way, it's kind of this question of like those videos that you would shoot, Eli, the value of those compared to the same films if you were to cut them together and call it a movie. What's the difference?
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to get
I'm not
at?
a globally renowned auteur, so
Right.
there's
No,
that.
so regardless of whether somebody sees it or
still.
not, right?
Yeah.
Like the classification of saying this is a movie.
Yeah.
I have picked a bunch of shots and put them together this way. That necessarily changes what the content is, even though the content is actually the same. The material is the same, right?
Yeah.
The classification of something as a movie, it's kind of like talking about like, you know, found object art, that kind of bullshit.
Right.
Like, same thing, you know what I mean? This is now a movie. And so you now have to think of it in the classification of movie. And then that comes with it all kinds of other baggage about thinking what a movie should be, blah, blah, blah. What a movie ought to be, how a movie should feel, how a movie should move, how a movie should cut. And how that piece goes against or with all that.
Like, it makes me want to do that again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
Eli, you should.
You should.
Birth of Eli
I-
filmmaker right now. Not AI.
I've had an experience teaching film in the last few weeks, and one of the units of filmmaking that I was teaching to a group of year 11 students, so 15, 16-year-olds, is experimental film. And I found it so tough to get across this idea of make it personal, throw out the rule book, just
Yeah.
make it something of your own. And I felt like they had such a tough time doing that because the previous like 4 years of their film education, 4 or 5 years of their film education is so geared towards like making like genre. Let's like make like something with a story that fits within like horror or sci-fi or all these other things. And then you get to this point in their film education where I'm like, okay, like just disregard everything that you've learned or disregard everything that we've taught you and try to like reach deep within and like come up with something within cinema that is like you. And they're like, what? And
They're like, you want me to be Chantal Akerman 2.0 right now? What? Mr. Lai, what does that mean?
I see that in young people too, because life has become so much about hitting the marks and checking the boxes in order to attain this next step, in order to get into college, in order to get the job, in order to have the family, in order to have status and power. So it's hard when you introduce to people the idea that, one, something does not have to be public, that it can be private and just for you and for your own emotional well-being. And two, that it doesn't have to abide by the rules of checking those boxes.
yeah.
But that's hard. And I think even in
Yeah.
Akerman's case, there's still only one Akerman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she, even I think at this point, you look at her career looks nothing like anybody else's.
Yeah, true.
Whether it's Varda or anyone else, I would say that most other filmmakers, you can see what they're trying to do. You're like, what is Akerman doing? Like, she starts off doing Jeanne Dielman and a bunch of experimental films. She puts herself in her first narrative fiction film and like is naked in that. And then makes, after Jeanne Dielman, News from Home. And then it starts floundering, I think, within her career because no one really knows what to do with her. And then she tries to make more commercial fare that she has to prove to people that she can do.
A Couch in New York.
Yeah, A Couch in New York and a bunch of others, Golden 80s. And then
Almayer's Folly.
still making no movie. Almayer's Folly is like on a different spectrum of like, let me make art house movie, I think, more like. So she's trying all sorts of stuff. And so I think at the core of Akerman is a very, very strong experimental bent. Experimental in the sense of like she's trying to figure out what she can do with cinema and what her perspective brings to the table, whether it is genre or art house or a certain kind of art house or documentary or personal or whatever it is. And I think even in her time, I think it's not even about the era. I think that's just really atypical in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people don't live their lives without a rule book. Most people follow some sort of path that they can at least use as guide rails to like figure out the next step. Akerman was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna do whatever works for me.
She was a very brave person.
Yeah.
Not just a brave filmmaker.
And I think that's quite commendable. And it's really difficult to understand and explain how singular that kind of drive is. With Jeanne Dielman, we talked about how she did that when she was like 25. She was just like, fuck it, I'm just going to do this 3.5 hour slow cinema masterpiece and no one knows what the fuck I'm talking about, but I'm going to do it. That's insane. And I feel like even with Letters Home and No Home Movie, same Akerman, same thing.
Yep.
I'm so grateful. We're not done yet with Akerman, but I'm just like, I think that this is definitely a reach for us. Like, I don't think
definitely.
We usually do this. We don't usually do this. So I'm grateful that we are doing this and we are having these tough to have conversations about cinema and ourselves and the baggage we carry into watching stuff or creating stuff, and like hope that if you're listening, you can sort of resonate with this like beautiful but complicated world that Akerman is bringing us with her films.
Yeah, I definitely am feeling intellectually and emotionally challenged in a way that's really productive and novel. It's fun to go here with you guys.
Amazing.
Yeah, we aren't done yet though, right? We have a few more in us.
Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna cover next.
I actually didn't know that. I thought we were. I'm happy to do more.
No, we gotta do some sort of other narrative.
Yeah.
I feel to counter with Jeanne Dielman.
Yeah, a real deep cut maybe.
Through a few of them. I need to watch a few more. I've actually been watching a bunch of Akerman and I've watched a few I realized already. But I'm really curious about her, I guess, mid-career work right now. Whether it's the more art house narratives or the more commercially minded ones. I'm quite curious how they shake out.
Can't wait to see what we come up with next. Or what Ben comes up with next.
I'm gonna pick. I have to pick.
Yep.
I accidentally became the Akerman guy, even though I'm the guy that enjoys them the least from an experiential level.
But like you said, it's not about the enjoyment. It's not about the enjoyment of it.
It's something else.
I feel like I'm doing homework. Not that that's a bad thing.
News from homework.
I mean, if I were to choose, I think I would just choose Portrait of a Young Woman.
Oh, a Portrait of a Young Girl, something, end of the 60s.
In the 60s, yeah.
That's an easy one to throw in there, but I feel like I want to dig. Like, I'm so curious now, I really want to dig.
With a spoon.
Yeah. So many callbacks this episode.
That's comedy.
That's Deep Cut. Thank you for listening to Deep Cut. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts to help others discover the show. A great way to support us is to leave a review for our show or comment on our episodes directly on Spotify. You can keep up with Deep Cut on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Twitter at DeepCutPod, or follow our TikTok at DeepCutPod_film. If you want to chat with us and other fans of Deep Cut, you can come join us on our Discord server where we talk about movies, TV, music, and share what we're up to. We also have a Patreon. If you want to support us with a monthly subscription, we'd really deeply appreciate it. You can click the link in our description or go to deepcutpod.com to find links to everything we've mentioned here. Special thanks to our Patreon Deep Cut Pick supporter, Leah Lai. You got words from your mother, Wilson, after today's episode?
I love you, and that's it. There's a lot
Damn, really put him on the spot.
Yeah.
That's rough, Ben.
Should I cut that out? No.
No, keep it in.
Deep Cut is hosted and produced by us, Wilson Lai, Benjamin Yap, and Eli Sands. Our cover art is designed by Justina Yam, and our theme song is composed by Eli Sands.
I'm Wilson.
I'm Ben.
I'm Eli.
Take care, and we're looking forward to talking about more movies with you next time.